Good evening, everyone. You're tuned into the Rangers Journal. I'm Doug, and tonight we're going to be talking about Scottish football. It is a bit of a fading force in the world, and while we may not have all the answers, we've certainly got plenty of ideas.
Every night is the Rangers Journal night.
Joining me this evening, I've got some amazing panelists, two of your favourites, I'm sure, who are going to join me to discuss tonight's topic. So, first of all, if I can welcome Tom on.
Good evening, Doug. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it. Some interesting topics to talk about tonight. So, let's say, always a pleasure coming on, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely, glad that you're here. And of course, joining me on the alt shirt front is Dino. Evening, Dino.
Evening, Doug. How you getting on, mate?
I'm not bad. Yourself?
Yeah, good. As Thomas says, loads of interesting things to talk about. So let's get into it.
Indeed. So thanks to everyone who's joined us already. If you've just joined the chat, if you can give us a like, we'd really appreciate that. It'll get us going in the old YouTube algorithms and all that stuff. We're going to be talking about Scottish football. As I say, it is not the force that it once was in the world. And I think that most people are agreed that there's various things that we can do to try and hopefully improve the game. So we're going to cover a few of those things this evening. We'll be talking a little bit about leadership in the SPFL, sponsorship deals, league structure, TV deals, and then we'll lightly touch on sort of youth football and a couple of other little things. So to start us off, I personally think one of the big things that needs to change if Scottish football is going to go anywhere is the leadership. Neil Doncaster's been in place since 2009 now, which I think it's 15 years, including his time with sort of prior to the SPFL, when it was the SPL. And I just don't think that he's the man that can take us any further forward. So if I can open up with yourself, Tom, if your thoughts on that.
Yeah, totally agree. The guy has just overseen failure after failure, and he commands a huge yearly fee. I can't remember how much it was, but he's raked in millions, and he's brought nothing to the Scottish game. Consistently getting lower TV deals, sponsorship deals. Like I say, the man has just completely failed, but every year he's still in the job. He's still entrusted to thrash out these deals and try and get sponsorship, TV deals, etc. for the Scottish game. You can't really compare the product of Scottish football and the English football, but you see the winners of the Scottish Premier League, they get about £2 million. Getting relegated from the Premiership, you get £30 million. As I say, the product is better marketed down south. It's a better product to market, but even there, he just sells our game short. The fact that he's been in that role for 15 years and nothing has changed is staggering, to be brutally honest. When you look at the failures of Scotland, the national team up till very recently, hadn't qualified for a major tournament since 1998. And even when we did qualify for Euro 2020, it was scraping through on penalties twice against Israel and Serbia. So I totally agree with you, Doug. For it to be changed, there needs to be, for Scottish football, to get better, there needs to be change at the top and people brought in who have real visions and real actual leadership and who can actually contribute to the game rather than just taking from it.
Absolutely. I mean, you talked about his pay there. I believe was there not something recently about them trying to get a pay rise as well, which to me is laughable given the lack of enterprise. If I swing over to yourself, Dean, have you any thoughts on the sort of the leadership within the Scottish game and what we need to change to move forward?
I just echo everything really that Tomo just said. We, as a footballing nation, have stagnated for 20 years, probably even longer, and that, like sponsorship, the money you get for winning the league. I don't know the exact figures, but it wasn't particularly much less 20 years ago. Whereas, as Tomo just said, using the Premier League as an example there, and what you won so 20 years ago, so I think what Man United won the league 20 years ago, so what Man United won the league, how much money they got 20 years ago will be a far less amount than what Man City just got. Do you get what I'm saying? Whereas it's still the same in our country. And players used to come to Scotland. We used to maybe not be as much of a selling club. We used to be able to get players across the city. They'd get players. I mean, even that team under Martin O'Neill, they're good players. Let's be honest. That were on that were Premiership quality players and this and the next thing, and they'd struggle to attract them these days as well, wouldn't they? And that's all down to the hierarchy that controls our footballing country. And I mean, that is £500,000 a year or something, I think, has been quoted as to how much he gets, or thereabouts. It's just it's just shambolic, isn't it?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think, like you say, for every Gaza and Loudrup that we had here, you'd have players over there like Henrik Larsson, who were also huge stars, great players. And I think that makes the whole product better. It's more exciting to see exciting players everywhere.
It does.
Absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt you there. And that then there was prime advertisement for our game to make our game, get to the next level. As you say, people tuning in to watch those players. As footballing fans over the years, we've perhaps maybe followed teams, or we've looked at teams and we've watched teams because they have certain players that excite you, certain players that you want to see play football. We tuned in to watch those like specific games, and I can't see many people wanting to tune in out with Scotland these days, wanting to watch our game. And that's down to the quality of the player. And that's no disrespect to the teams that the players play for or the players themselves. It's just the state of our national game.
Yeah, definitely. Tomo, to pick up on one of the points just made there, he talked about obviously the quality of the league has changed. We talk a lot ourselves in terms of Rangers as a club of buying exciting young players that we can sell on. Do you think that that's something that perhaps the league should look to make a selling point of Scotland as a whole, and not just the Old Firm, but the teams just below us, and making the league, recognising our position sort of in the totem pole, and maybe we should be focusing on Scotland as a place where you will discover the next great players because they will come through us. Do you think that would be a good way to revitalise things, or do you have any kind of thoughts on that yourself?
No, it's a good point. I think Rangers and I'll say Celtic as well, they are global clubs and players know about them. Part of the issue is any sort of young player who's got, who looks like they've got real potential, they can go down south and probably pick up more in wages than what we can offer them. So it depends on how they want to play. It depends how do we want to have the money, or do we want to have the opportunity to play at a club like Rangers? So I think it is a good point, but I think the main thing with our game is we need to change the way we look at the game, fans and players and managers. If I wasn't a Rangers fan, I wouldn't watch Scottish football, because I watch Rangers against whoever in the league, and 99% of the time it's Rangers with the ball and the opposition team just sitting back, looking to hoof the ball up the park and hopefully nick something from a corner or a set piece. There is, I mean, I get that teams can't come out and have a go at us every game, but we still celebrate players going into hard tackles like we've just scored a last minute goal. You know, Scott Brown was revered for years because he was a hard man. Wasn't a particularly good football player, but he was revered as this sort of hard man who would put in hard tackles. And that's where our country is. We are still 20 odd, probably even longer behind the rest of the world. Even countries like Georgia, Albania, who have just qualified for the Euros as well, teams like that, their players have ability. They're not scared to express themselves on the ball. Our young players are still told, you're too small, you're not going to make it in the game. If Messi had been Scottish, you wouldn't have heard of him. You would have been told at 11, 12, sorry, you're too small, away you go. And as I say, that whole mentality needs to change. And that comes from the media as well. You still see it. Tackles get put in on Rangers players this season that weren't punished, caused injuries to them. And in the media, it's, there's not much in that. The commentator, not much in that. And you're like, could have broke the guy's leg. And players will see that, young players will see that, and they're like, do I really want to go up there and just get absolutely kicked to next week at Dens Park or wherever? It's great playing for Rangers at Ibrox in front of a big crowd, but then they go away to these grounds, as I say, like Dens Park, which obviously had its issues last season, and they're playing on a, bobbly pitch, waterlogged pitch. Just pretty much everything needs to change, Doug. It's not just one thing. Everything needs to change to be able to attract. But the other teams need to be a little bit more forward thinking, getting these players in and playing a different style of football. It's the old manager merry-go-round in Scotland. Someone will fail at one team and then get a job at another team. And it just keeps going round in that circle. And until we get people in with ideas that I'm going to want to play an attacking brand of football, it's going to be hard to market our game to anyone outside of Scotland.
Absolutely. And speaking about obviously marketing, a big aspect of that is our sponsorship. And you touched on money in the game yourself a minute ago. So if I can ask you that, do you think something that's been mentioned is, trying to get new sponsors, fresh sponsors, not the same old betting, gambling, and things like that? Do you have any thoughts on how we can sort of push forward? What kind of sponsorship and businesses areas should we be looking to get interested in the Scottish game?
I think, given the way that the game is, and I would use sort of countries that are at the same level as Scotland, and I mean your Scandinavian countries, Belgium, Holland. I know there might be a wee bit more, but they're not far off. Portugal, I'm just trying to think of relatively similar nations, and all these nations are thriving. They have these TV deals, these sponsorship deals that make us look like I don't know, dinosaurs. Is maybe one for a better term. And I think when we have somebody in charge who then goes to then get sponsorship, and we get a sponsor for the league, and the sponsorship money that company gives the league is less money than the exact same company is giving the Spurs women's football team. I find, and that to me is just like why is this not getting lambasted by everybody that associated with Scottish football? That is embarrassing. Like our whole league got less money than the Spurs women's football team. That is just absolutely bonkers, and that just epitomises everything that's wrong with our game. And in terms of, you know, the sponsorship and seen as a record-breaking sponsorship deal, well, it wasn't an incredibly low bar to begin with. So, you know, do you know what I mean? It doesn't take much for it to be a record-breaking deal, but everybody's like, oh, record-breaking deal, what a great job, and blah, blah, and I'm like, but it's actually absolutely dug meat the deal in the first place. It's not even like an incredible amount more. It's just like, so yeah, that's going to be the sponsorship. We have to there has to be better people in charge to market, to find sponsors that are going to give us a decent amount of money to then that's going to be filtered down throughout the clubs. And I think I'm maybe going off on a tangent here, maybe we'll cover this, but see, with the whole crack with Dundee this season and their pitch, right? They don't have the money to maintain the pitch. So that money comes from, you know, the money that they get for playing in the league, which is very little. If we had more money coming into the league, we wouldn't have teams' pitches not being playable. We wouldn't have plastic pitches. We'd have, you know, in this day and age, we should have teams' pitch that is like Ibrox, that's like Parkhead, that play a lot less football than what we actually do, to be able to put a team out to now. I mean, what, the Dundee 3-4 times last season, they cancelled games. Like that can't happen in this day and age, and that, in my opinion, all comes down from money that the ones in charge get for our games. So, in terms of a specific sponsor, I'm open to anybody that's, you know, any company that can give us a good amount of money to change our game, because that's what's needed. And we have to have the right people that's selling our product that says, well, if you give us more money, we can attract bigger players, better players to the league, which is going to then give people more of an opportunity, and that's going to want to watch your game. And that's as you said, Tom, it's all a cycle, isn't it? That's exactly what it's like. So I mean, one thing affects the other thing. So every cog in the wheel needs to be in tune with the other one for it all to go around, for it all to be singing and dancing, and and there's so many cogs missing, isn't there?
Can I just come in there, Doug? Sorry, can I just come in there, Doug? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
I've just had a read in the comments, and someone has mentioned. Apologies, I didn't catch the name. Someone mentioned that Doncaster's on 800 grand. Now, that's probably more than teams get for, you know, winning the League Cup or winning the Scottish Cup. How can that be right? How can that amount of money be going out of the game into one person's pocket? And like I say, in the 15 years that he has been in that job, I will before the end of this pod, I will challenge you gents or anyone in the comments to bring up something that Doncaster has done successfully to improve Scottish football. I don't think anyone will be able to. I've got to be honest, and it's things like that make you angry. We'll get onto TV deals and streamings, etc. But the cold hard facts is Sky pay money for the Old Firm games. That's it. They're not interested in Livingston versus Hibs or Motherwell versus Hearts. They pay that money for the Old Firm games because I don't live in Scotland, but I live in Isle of Man. I've got friends who all support Premier League teams, but they always tune in to the Rangers Celtic games. They've still got that nostalgia of rough and tumble games, hard tackles, you know, how it once was. But say to them, you know, even if we're down the pub, say to them on the telly, oh, Hibs v Motherwell's on. All right, okay. They turn their back because they're not interested in it. And that is the problem. That is the problem. Nobody outside of Scotland wants to watch any of the teams. And the head of the organisation should be fixing that. And quite simply, it hasn't.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, talking about finding things that he's done right. One of the funny things I find about the recent deal that they made, like Dino said, they're kind of lauding this this record-breaking deal for a second TV subscriber. Yet when we moved from having multiple ones before to just Sky, Doncaster said that was the right move because fans shouldn't have to pay for multiple packages. So has he changed his mind in between, or is he just saying what he wants to say to make what he's doing sound good? Okay, doc. So I think we'll touch on sponsorship there. I think actually this is probably a good idea. You touched on streaming, Tom. Well, maybe we just jump to that at this point, as it kind of connects in. I'm a big fan of the idea of Scottish football taking its rights on itself and looking to create a streaming service. Scottish football serves straight from people who run it to its fans and its consumers. I think that would be a really bold and forward-thinking move for the league to do. They can tailor services directly to fans. You can have, club-based packages that tailor things towards your club. You'd be able to sell Old Firms both as group packages or as individual things for people who want to. If people just want to watch that, then fine, they can do that, but we'll make them pay for it. It will just give us more control, and I feel more the ability to be agile and to make changes ourselves. Do you think that's something that's a possibility, or do you think the future would be better with like a partner or for, let's say, just for argument's sake, say like going shopping out to someone like an Apple TV or Amazon instead of just doing the same thing with Sky all the time?
I mean, personally, I think it is the way forward. That's the way the world is going. Each club pretty much has their own TV channel, and they will stream their own games. Nowadays, if you want to watch, let's say, obviously we talk about Scottish football, but we're obviously a Rangers channel. So let's say we talk about Rangers. If you want to watch all the Rangers games that are on TV, you need a subscription to Sky, to TNT, I think Premier Sports as well with the League Cup. I'm sure there's probably something I've forgotten there, but that's 3 separate packages you need. And with the way things are with cost at this moment in time, it's just not. It's not right. It's not. They're not thinking of the fans. So Rangers obviously stream their games. I personally would like Rangers to be able to do that legally in the UK, so that fans in the UK can watch. This 3 p.m. blackout thing they've got is, it's something that needs to be scrapped. You can go into any pub in the country at 3 p.m. on a Saturday and have your pick of whatever Premier League game you want, and it isn't affecting the attendances at football matches, which was the original idea why they brought it in. So I think that needs scrapping. And yeah, either the clubs themselves sell the games, sell a season ticket to the games, because not every fan can get up to Ibrox every other week. So sell a season ticket to the games. That way, clubs make money. Or if the Scottish League want to do it themselves, again, tailor it to the fans, and then they can pay for what they want to watch. But you see the Premiership, they've got Amazon on board. Again, that's another subscription, but people usually have Amazon Prime anyway as part of a subscription. So it's not a huge amount difference for them if they want to watch those extra Premier League games on there. But I think the way it is now is really outdated, and like everything else, as Dean said before, we're living in the dinosaur era, and we need to get up to 2024 and get with the times. Otherwise, we will be stuck another 20 years behind the rest of the world. And in 20 years' time, hopefully the podcast is still going. We'll be having the same exact conversations that we're having now.
will not be looking as pretty by that point, I don't think. But if I could pick up on an interesting point there, what's your thoughts on the 3 p.m. blackout? Do you think if we were to remove that, fans would still go to games, or do you think there's any danger that people would just sack it and go to the pub instead?
No, if you're a football fan, there is nothing better than being in that stadium watching it live. That feeling that you get. I mean, I've been going to Ibrox for 30 odd years, and walking up to Ibrox, I still get goosebumps. Even when we're not playing and I'm going to the shop, I still get goosebumps. Do you know what I mean? Like, so there's that. I don't think that would ever dwindle away. But to echo what Tomo said there about the subscriptions and things like that, like for people like myself, I get my daughter 3 weekends out of 4, so it's nigh on impossible, at the moment for me to get to Ibrox all the time. Whereas, sitting in the comfort of my own house, having a subscription to the games that I can't get to, I'd be all over it. And as I definitely imagine, so would people not just in Scotland or Britain, but people around the world as well. We've got a lot of fans all around the world that would be up for it. And I know that we're Rangers and Celtic are exceptions because of the worldwide fan base, and not every team in Scotland has got a wide fan base and things like that. I do understand that and respect that. But there is a lot of fans that don't make games to, that are of other clubs that don't make the games for whatever reason. And I've spoken to fans of other teams, and they would be, everybody's like, I would be up for that. That'd definitely be something that would appeal to me, that I would go for things like that. What is, over the years, I had sort of conversations here and there. So it wouldn't just be Rangers fans that would be up for it. Fans all over the board would be up for it. And because that is obviously the way that things are going, everything's streaming, everything's IPTV, etc., etc. It's that you've got to get, as Thomas said, you've got to get with the times. And this 3 p.m. blackout thing is like, I'm fans that still have the time to go to the game, that love going to the games, will always go to the games. That's never going to change, irrespective of the deal that we could get for ourselves. But again, as I say, there's loads of fans that can make, like, fans come over for, like as Tom says, Islay Man, he gets over for a game, just say something happened to the boat or something, like he was unable to get to the game. Downside is he's not going to get to the game, but the plus side is at least he can go back home and he can watch it. And it's the same with people coming over from Northern Ireland, people travelling all the way up from England. I mean, last season, but it was quite well publicised that there was people, a man and his son that came from England and travelled, 10-day camel ride to get to Dundee, and it was called off and things like that. Whereas, having those sort of things in place, like the subscription sort of service, that would actually, it's still not the same as getting to the game, but you're still going to be able to get to watch it. So those are things that definitely have to be looked at.
Yeah, I agree. I think you've touched on an interesting point as well about worldwide fans. One of the things I think that we can benefit from with a streaming service, particularly if it's owned by the league itself, is the ability to just broadcast globally and not necessarily licensed by market, which is the sort of traditional model. Because as well as, obviously, like you say, Rangers and Celtic are going to do fine either way in terms of global fans. But if we're going to improve this game as a whole, we want to push up the other clubs as well.
Exactly.
And I mean, there's a couple of Asian players at some of the other clubs. Obviously, all clubs have got players from various countries, and if you've got a package that's available, no matter where you are, you can sub to it, or you can just buy one game here or there. And someone's like, "Oh, such and such from our national team is playing for Hearts today, and there's that game for £5. I'll just buy that and watch it." You could get little things like that then spins into, oh, that was really, maybe they see a cracking game and Hearts win 4-0, Shankland scored a bunch of goals, and next thing you know, you've got a Hearts fan in north of Japan. So that kind of is the thing that we could have growing the game, which because I personally would love to see some of the other clubs get closer to us. If nothing else, it means that if we don't win the league, at least it might not be them that win the league. But again, stepping back from me as a Rangers fan, I'm looking at it from it as the more people challenging, the more exciting the league is. It's no good having two teams that are just battling out, and then the third team is 10, 20, 25 points behind. So, like you said, all these things feed into one another. Okay, so one of the big points, and maybe even the main point that we'll touch on tonight is the actual league structure itself. Obviously, we've got the structure we have right now, which we've got our handful of leagues along the top with a split in the top division, which obviously splits into two playoff sections for the title and relegation. We're not unique in that front. There are other leagues that have got splits or have had splits in the past. And what I thought we would do is I'll put a sort of an idea out and folk can kind of comment on it. But the first thing I thought that would be interesting to look at would be, as I say, the size of the league and compare that to some others. So I've got a wee slide here that shows and the logo's covering the last two there. It kind of shows the number of teams in the top division across the top 15 leagues in Europe. And when you look at that there, you can see, we've got one of the smallest, along with some other sort of, what I would probably say are similar sized leagues in Switzerland, Austria, and Greece there. And you can see pretty much all the big leagues have got the larger ones between sort of 18 and 20. So if I throw it to you, Tomo, first, do you have any thoughts about the just sort of, without getting into splits or anything like that, just the size of the league in general? Should we be getting bigger? Are we good where we are? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think we should have a league of 16 or 18, play each other twice. Might mean, obviously, if we have a 16-team league, it'll be what, 5-6 games less. If an 18-team league, it'll be a couple of games less. It'll be 4 games less. But when you take into account the Scottish winter and whatnot, and the games that are postponed, I think it could work better. But as I say, the stumbling block is always going to be the deal with Sky, because they'll want their 4 Old Firm games a season. I don't think they'd be happy for it to just go down to 2. But for us to progress and make this league better, I do think it needs to be, expanded. Playing each other 4 times a season just gets stale. And then when you come to the split part, again, it's just nonsense, isn't it? When you think about it, you're potentially playing some team away 3 times. People like to use the words sporting integrity. That usually comes out, doesn't it? Where's the sporting integrity if you've got to go away 3 times to the same team, and then your nearest challengers have an extra home game? It isn't fair, is it? And to make it more interesting, I think a home and away, this 4 times a season is too much. And then if you draw them in both the cups, there's potentially 6 games a season. And you see it with the Old Firm. Yeah, you have an Old Firm game, in beginning of September, then you've got the New Year game. Might possibly have one in between if you draw each other in the League Cup. And then the second half of the season, you could potentially have 3 or 4 within the space of 3 months. And it just dilutes the product that you're trying to sell. So I would most definitely be in favour of more teams in the top league and going from there.
Okay, what about yourself? Do you know what's your thoughts on the league size?
It needs done. If you got to remember again, sort of like to reiterate the point of earlier on, we've stagnated. That was the league format that was 20 years ago, or 20 odd years ago, and it's not done anything for the Scottish game. It's never advanced us. And we, as Rangers fans, you know, we kind of, I guess, are not really aware of what the effects it does have to teams below us in terms of the split. 18 teams, in my opinion, play each team home and away. Keep the cup competitions, maybe improve the League Cup, but that's another story for another day. But the way that's done, I'm not a fan of that either. However, and then like do like, you know, maybe similar to what England do. Three teams get relegated, 3 teams come up. So there's more teams given an opportunity, and that's only going to make teams that are in the sort of lower divisions better as well for financial reasons, and, you know, getting players in and things like that. So every team would benefit from that. And, you know, like you'd said, I think earlier on about the, you know, being boring, you know, be nice to have somebody else challenge. You're right, it would be. And that's only going to start with, in my opinion, for expanding the league. We're actually, we have a lot of teams in Scotland. We have a lot of teams, like, and changing the league format, not just in the Premier League, but, you know, first, second, third, whatever they're, you know, called now. I'm just old school, I'm not. But the point I'm making is changing the format in the same, like having, you could have three, you know, of 18 teams or things like that, you know, just to make it better for Scottish football. And like the split, and again, like what you said, playing some team 3 times a week, you're right, there's no sporting integrity there at all. It's not fair. It's not fair on the team that is unfortunately having to do the 3 trips to Ibrox or whatever, or however it rolls. But we can only see something that needs change because we can see how bad it is. So the people that are making these decisions, like, the question is, why can't you see that this is failing? This needs change. Like, what has to give for it to change? Like, do you know? Whereas we can all see it. We've been seeing that for years. I've only known you guys since doing the pod, but I can almost guarantee you've seen the problems with it for years, like everybody else has. So it's not just this is a new problem. This has been an ongoing problem for far too long to remember. And as I said, that 20 years ago when the split happened and things like that, it was great. But then when you realise the frailties of it, you realise that this is actually kind of crap. This does need to be changed, and changing the amount of teams in it to 18 teams, you know, 3 going down, 3 coming up. That would actually be a lot better for Scottish football, in my opinion.
Can I just jump in there? Can I just jump in there as well, please, Doug? Just to what Dean said there. There's a lot of good junior teams about as well. So getting them up into it won't be professional ranks, obviously, but the part-time ranks. If you had 3 tiers of 18 teams, get some of them up. And the other thing as well that I would if the format wasn't to change, I would get rid of the playoff for the team that finishes second bottom in the SPL. It should be 2 automatically relegated, and then in the first division, still have the playoff, but between the 4 teams that come second, third, fourth, fifth, and the winner of that goes up. Because I haven't got the stats in front of me, but if we went back and had a look, it would be very rare that the team from the first division has beat the Premier League team in the playoff final. I can't recall too many times that it's happened. So that then gives 2 teams from the Championship a chance to get up to the top league and earn a bit of money. Whereas now you get teams like Dundee United who get relegated and are still too strong for the Championship and come straight back up. So other teams, a couple of years ago, I think it was Arbroath, came like second. Imagine if they'd got voted And even if we just had one season of the Premiership football coming to the likes of Ibrox, Celtic, getting the Rangers fans that are going to their ground a couple of times a season, possibly. Imagine what that would do for their finances. And I think that we need to, as I say, if we're not going to be interested in expanding the league, get rid of that playoff where the second bottom team's involved. Just straight relegation from the bottom two, and that's it.
Good ideas there. On that point, then, what I want to do next is put out a scenario then for a new idea and for the leagues and have we chat about it. The first thing I would say is I think we should be bold when we make changes. I think Scottish football is very conservative, and being bold is something I think because it's ultimate football is about drama. And so we need to create drama in the game. And that was I'll give them their due. That was the idea behind the split, was to make for there to be more drama at both sides. Just to give us an idea about, for example, how bold you could potentially go. I was having a wee look around at some of the groups in Europe and some other podcasts that have talked about this subject, and found out about, I can't remember if they said this is the current system. I think it is. If not, it's a very recent system that Belgium has. So in the Belgian league, I forget the exact details, but they get to a certain point, kind of like we get to the split, and then their points get halved that they've earned up to that point. The top half of their league kind of does a similar type of thing to ours and goes to fight for championships and the main European entries. But then one of their Europa League entries is the middle section of the league plus the top half of their version of the championship gets put up. So you're in the championship and you get put up with groups from the middle of their Premier League, and they get put into 4 groups that does a wee knockout thing until there's a winner, and that person gets into the Europa League. The European Conference League. So it would be the equivalent this year of Cali Thistle, who obviously mid-championship team, ending up getting the Conference League place because they go up and through this whole thing. So, that's a completely... When I read that, I was just like, halving points, pulling teams up from the championship. This is absolutely bonkers. But then at the same time, I was like, how amazing would you feel if you were that mid-championship club who suddenly finds yourself in the Europa and the Conference League because you've gone into this bit and then maybe beating who was middle of the table, Motherwell, whoever else, a couple of cup games. I mean, we saw Aberdeen getting beaten by a minnow recently. And so I imagine there's probably some exciting scenarios that come out of that. So that's a kind of an idea of how bonkers you could go or how bold you could go. But the scenario I'm going to give us tonight isn't quite that far. I have to give credit to the Improving Scottish Football podcast, which is where I actually found this. I had a different scenario that was something that I'd come up with. But when I read this, I actually really, really liked this. And so I decided that it would be a good one to talk about. It's a little bit, unfortunately, their slide is a little bit fuzzy, so I'll quickly go through it for us to chat about. So the idea, it was, let me credit the lad from the podcast. His name was Graham Taylor. He's a data analyst. He's worked in Scottish football. He was a guest on this podcast. If when you're finished this one, I highly recommend giving it a listen. It was a really good, interesting chat. They talked about various different combinations, and I say this was my favourite. So you've got a top tier Premiership with 16 teams, and then this 16 team would split into 3 sections instead of 2. So you'd have a top section, a middle section, and a bottom section. So your top section will obviously fight for the title, the Champions League places, Europa League places, and a Conference League place. Pre-split, everyone plays each other home and away, 2 games. And then post-split, everyone plays themselves home and away again. The split, I think, is, top 4, middle 10, and bottom 6. So you would end up playing between 38, 40 games, depending on your section. And that there's the reason that they're slightly different. It lines them up with how the promotion and playoffs occur. So the top half, the drama comes from fighting for obviously your championship and your or your premiership, and your European spots. The bottom half obviously has drama because you're facing off for relegation. It's got 2 relegation spots, like you mentioned, Tomo, but it still has a playoff spot, so you've got potential for 3 up, 3 down. But the thing that then makes the middle section really interesting, that I think is a bit of a plus from what we have now, where you've got that kind of middle group where often they're too far away. The guys at the top of the middle, who end up in the top of our current split, are too far away to ever have a chance to win the title. And the guys who are at the top end of the bottom of the split are doing too well to get relegated. This middle section, they get our last Conference League place. So that gives the middle section teams something to really go for and to really go all out to get. They also are not a threat of relegation, so hopefully it encourages playing younger players, trying new things, or just going for it because, well, if we get beat every game, we're not going to go down. But if we win every game, we can get this Conference League place. So it adds drama and it adds real consequence or interest to every part of the section of the league, which is the part of this I really like. You then got your 2 sections below, a championship and a national league. So they're both 14 team leagues. They both also have splits now. Obviously, we don't currently have splits. So the idea again, it's adding the sort of that drama in. You've got 2 automatic promotion places from each league up to the league above, and then they've got playoffs for the next 3. And you see obviously the third group, the third bottom team from the Premiership and Championship will be involved in that. Again, there's home and away matches involved pre and post split to allow the games to roughly even out. And as I say, the reason that the groups at the bottom of the Premiership have slightly less games is because it would mean that they've played the same amount of games as the top teams from the Championship, so that when they go into the playoff, they're on an even footing, which doesn't always happen right now. Sometimes teams from either side can have played more or less games, and you occasionally see that as an argument for teams losing playoffs. This will also preserve, on the assumption that Rangers and Celtic will always finish in the top half, which right now I think is a safe assumption to make. It would also preserve the 4 Old Firm matches, but not necessarily for, obviously not everyone necessarily gets to play the Old Firm 4 times, but it preserves the 4 Old Firm matches, which for TV or selling is obviously going to be a big thing. So I think we do have to be realistic, and that is what anyone we're going to sell it to, if we're going to sell it to someone, is going to want. So it preserves that aspect itself. So that's kind of a rough overview of this idea. As I say, not my idea. I want to give full credit to the Improving Scottish Football podcast that I peeled this from. I just thought it was really interesting and I wanted to showcase it. So as I say, guys, please check that out if you want to. So if I throw this over to you, Tom, first of all, what do you make of that idea? Splits all over the place, triple splits. As I say, it's a bit more of an out there thought. What do you think?
Yeah, in theory, it sounds good. I just think anything to be given a go, other than the current format, has to be looked at. Unfortunately, the people that are in charge of this game only care about getting their money. So things like this, which a podcaster has gone on and done, come up with a really good idea. It should be the people who are running our game who's coming up with these kinds of ideas to keep it fresh and keep it interesting. But certainly from how you've explained it and what I've seen there, I'd be happy to see that and give it a go and see how it pans out. Definitely.
Okay, what about yourself, Dino?
Hi. One of my biggest bugbears of the way that of the current format is that the team finishes 5th quite often has less points than the team finishing 6th. Not that matters per se, but it just actually annoys me because it just kind of breathes crap to me. Do you know? Whereas that sort of format you just explained, that wouldn't, you know, necessarily happen. It would be a lot more exciting. You know, and as Tom says, that, you know, changing it to something like this would be appealing to many Scottish football fans. And obviously with the charlatans that's running our game, therein lies a problem. But we can live in hope, because something like this is you know, essentially going to make our game a lot better structured. Let's be honest. It's a lot better structured right away. So that's a game changer, and that's what's badly needed. So yeah, I'm all for something like that, and with the hope that the ones in charge have the same feelings about it, because it's only going to make things better, something like that, isn't it?
Absolutely. I'm going to take a very quick second. I've just noticed in the chat, people saying that they're finding it difficult to hear me. I can't actually change the level at the moment. I adjusted my setup slightly, so apologies if you're struggling to hear me. It will hopefully be better next time. I'll go back to what I had before. It's either that or just my AirPods aren't working properly. But apologies if you're struggling to hear me. I'll try and talk louder. Not normally a problem for me, I must admit. Okay, so yeah, as I say, I should also point out with that, we'd also have the Lowland. I think someone touched on it. So we'd have the Lowland leagues and the Highland League feeding into these as well. I think it's important to keep the pyramid aspect. I want to see those teams coming up, getting those opportunities as well. I really like, as I say, having up to 3 teams being able to move, increasing the mobility amongst the leagues, and hopefully again sharing money around a little bit more as well. So that's great. I've been seeing people talking in the chat about ideas. One of the big things that they've mentioned that we were going to be talking about as well is youth football. So we'll move on to that. You know, if anyone has any thoughts on this particular league structure, do give us a shout in the comments and give us a like if you agree that the structure of the leagues needs to change. Okay, so youth football. I think it's fair to say that, I mean, there's pretty much no youth football in Scotland as it stands. We well know the struggles that the Rangers lads have to try and just get games going nonetheless. We've had the kind of Colts team thing, which doesn't seem to be much of a goer. I'm in two minds about that myself as to how that would work. I think my preference would be for there to be a league of some description for themselves, and to promote as many Scottish teams as possible to have youth teams in there. Due to the money issues, I wonder if there's maybe the possibility for some teams to band together to put in a youth team. So maybe you could have like just a combined Dundee youth team, for example, rather than maybe Dundee and Dundee United trying to pay for their own, because I know that that's an issue for some clubs to be able to afford to run their own youth side, so that we can get a youth team going. Maybe the winners of the youth team get entered into one of the Lowland League Trophy cups to give them something to go for. Add a little bit of spice to the competition. I'm not sure. If I come to you first, what are your thoughts on how we could improve the youth game? And what would you do if it was you in charge?
I'd be looking at having a reserve league for sure, and you could have a successful reserve league easily in this country, but there's just that's what I would do if I was in charge. I would bend myself over backwards for that to be the case. I remember when Billy Gilmore was the age that he was at with us before he left for Chelsea, and one of the reasons why he left was because of the reserve league and stuff in England and the quality football that he's going to be playing and players that he's going to be up against playing. to obviously bet himself now. He's self-confessed Rangers fan, whole family of Rangers as far as I'm aware. You know, boyhood dream playing for Rangers, but the setup in Scotland is night and day difference to what the setup is in England. Now, I'm not saying that we're a Chelsea and the monetary side of things for that Chelsea get for the reserve team, and obviously that Chelsea, I think, one club that's renowned for having a massive turnover of youth players. They'll send them out on loan here, there, everywhere and stuff, don't they? But the point I'm making is the opportunities for them were far greater, and now obviously Billy Gilmore is a once in a sort of generational player that's going to come through Ibrox, isn't he? But I'm just using his transfer as an example of the failures of in this country. Now, we always bang the drum about, you know, having players to come in and, you know, to our first team squad, and there isn't that turnover. And we look, you know, other teams in our league. Lennon Miller's, what is he? Is the boy 17? Is that a fair? Yeah, 17 years old, and like he's like youth. He's a youth, right? But he's playing men's first team football, which is great, and it's going to propel his career massively. But the point I'm making is he's playing in a first team, whereas, you know, in an ideal world there is players that should be playing, you know, under 18s, under 21s, whatever it is, reserve team football. So I would look at a better way to implementing that into our game as soon as possible. Now, I'm kind of just going off topic here in a wee bit, but there was a documentary that came out on BBC maybe 30 years ago, and it was a documentary on Belgium and Holland and their youth set up for players and academies and to progress players. And then maybe about 10 years ago, there was a documentary on that documentary that we were still the same as what we were 30 years ago. And then obviously the advancements that the Netherlands and Belgium made. Do you remember what I'm talking about? So that just, you know, like we're wanting all these changes, and I just think it's that, you know, it's going to mean massive changes. Like, it's not just like slight tweaks here and there. It's massive changes. If I was in charge, I would be ripping it back and starting for the foundations up.
Okay, just bringing in a couple of comments here. We've got Paul who's saying there, you know, no youth football is going to affect Scotland as a nation. I think that's totally true, and the longer it goes on, the worse it'll get. And we've got Wolf there saying we need 2 leagues for the youth, so the limited amount of senior players for the first team. What's your thoughts on that, Tomo?
Yeah, 100%. Well, I agree with both the comments, but Paul especially. As Dina said, countries in Europe, Belgium, Holland, Germany, their national teams were failing. They weren't doing anything, and they went right back to grassroots football, ripped it up entirely, and started again. And you look, I mean, Belgium and Holland are similar size to Scotland in terms of population, and they're constantly getting to World Cups, having deep runs in tournaments. Why can't Scotland do that? How can we expect? We say at Rangers, where's the young players coming through? Where are they? How can we expect young players who aren't playing on a weekly basis at a competitive level to suddenly be put in the first team and play? It's just not fair. It's not fair on those lads. And Ross McCausland, fair enough, came into the team this season, but that was circumstances. Ross McCausland, there might be people who are more clued up than I am, but from what I understand, Ross McCausland was nowhere near the first team, and then there was a load of injuries, and he was put in and performed well and kept his place. So that was just by sheer luck he got in there. And Billy Gilmore, I don't care how talented the lad is, if he'd stayed at Rangers, I don't think he would be playing for Scotland against Germany on Friday. I think he would have been lost to the game and either wouldn't have made it or would be playing for some mid-table SPL side. He certainly wouldn't have won the Champions League at 20 years of age, being a key player for Chelsea, let's be honest. And it's sad, as Dean said, he's a Rangers fan through and through, wanted to wear that shirt, but the manager can't give him games because he's got nothing to go on. He sees him in training, and it's like, yeah, you might look good in training, but how are you going to do in a game? And he made the right decision going down to Chelsea, as it's shown. He has made the right decision for his career, and that is a sad thing. This is why we are not producing players through our academy, because they do not play games. And all we need to do is just bring back the reserve league. It worked fine in the 90s, had a good mix of youth players and then returning injured players. No idea why it was messed with, but that's the powers that be. But we should not expect to see many young players coming into our first team if they're not playing regular football at a competitive level.
Absolutely, totally agree. Right, I think we've just about hit our time there, so I'll just sort of summarise up. I think we've had a lot of really interesting points tonight. Leadership, I think, is the biggest thing that needs to change. One thing we didn't touch on that I actually think is arguably the most important thing is we need to get rid of the 11-1 voting system. It just allows either us and Celtic to band together, or for things that are going to affect the bottom two or couple leagues, two teams near there will band together. It stops progress, in my opinion. But leadership needs to change. Better sponsorship, newer, more exciting brands, new opportunities. We need people to look for. League structure, we need more change, we need more drama, something different, maybe something bold to push us forward. And then, as we've just touched on there, youth football, we have none. We need some. It'll improve not just the teams, but the national game as well. So, I think we've hit on a lot of good points there. We've had a lot of great comments and things from the chat as well. So thanks for participating this evening. If you think Scottish football needs to make big changes and soon, then please give this video a like. Leave any comments afterwards if you think of anything else as well. I, for one, am always looking at videos, just pick up interesting things from the comments. But I'll finish off just by thanking the guys for joining me. So thanks very much, Chomo, for your points tonight.
No, not a problem, as always. Thanks for hosting, Doug, and thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure, and as you say, some real interesting points that we've hit on tonight. And if three guys here can see what the issue is, then highly paid people who are entrusted to run our game should be able to see it as well. But yeah, great pod again. Thanks for having me.
Perfect, and thank you, Dino, as well.
Thanks for having me. Been a pleasure and privilege as always, guys. Really good pod. Another quick hour that we've been involved in. So yeah, we could probably keep going for another hour or two, couldn't we? But yeah, loads of good points. Very well articulated, I think. And I think we, as you say, Tom, if three guys can see the problems, then well, hopefully somebody that's high above has watched this video and maybe takes note. And thanks very much for tuning in, guys. Like, share and subscribe, please.
Absolutely. Give us a like if you think we should get paid £800,000 a year to fix Scottish football.
I'll do it.
Okay.
I'll do it for £1,000. Please need 800 grand. Give me £1,000, we'll sort it.
You've got a deal. Okay, everyone, thanks for joining us, and don't forget that every night it's Rangers Journal night.